Hello everybody, my name is Anne-Maria Newham. I'm the Executive Director of Nursing and AHPs, and you can also, oh here he is, I was hoping he would come, wouldn't have to say much more. So today, Ask the Execs, we have our Chief Executive John Brewin, and we also have Becky Sutton, Director of Community Health Services. So I was doing a bit of a fill-in. I'm glad I didn't have to tell a joke. So I'm now going to hand over to our boss, the Chief Executive, John Brewin.
Thanks, Anne-Maria. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I was a bit late and on the hoof. As many of you, I'm sure, there's lots going on at the moment. A very belated Happy New Year. And we might all be thinking, oh, it's not very Happy New Year, but although we're in a bit of a difficult spot at the moment, there are reasons to be optimistic because we are in a very different position to March of last year, and that's going to be something for us to hang on to. So vaccines are here, and it's very early days in the programme. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. There are known treatments and interventions. We're much better placed than we were. We know about the vulnerable groups and the risks. So the tough bit is going to be, I think, the next 4 to 6 weeks, and we're going to have to really work, support our staff, and to do the best we can and to get through that bit. Remain upbeat, optimistic. We will get through this. But you don't need me to say that it's going to be tough. The first thing, as always, is to recognise the great work that people are doing across the organisation, particularly over the holiday season, which we've all experienced as being different from usual, and to recognise the work that people put into maintaining services across the last couple of weeks, in the midst of an emerging wave 3, I think we're on now, and the challenges that's put in. So a massive thank you to everybody that continues to work right across the organisation. Just a couple of sort of headline notes to kick things off in terms of, okay, so where are we? And I want to talk about 3 particular things. One is sort of general position in terms of, okay, what does lockdown 2 or lockdown 3 mean for the organisation? I want to say a little bit about lateral flow testing, and I want to say a little bit about vaccines. And to support that, we're going to be doing some video pieces with the comms team this afternoon, just to capture that, so it can be available on the Facebook page and on Connect. In terms of general position, we spent a lot of time at the exec team this morning saying, okay, so where are we? One of the areas where we are back to wave 1, lockdown 1 back in March, as you'll have seen it on some of the governmental branding already, stay home, protect the NHS, save lives. And that's a good headline sort of capture of where we are. So we're saying to our staff, if your job enables you to work at home, work at home. We'll support you in doing that. If your job means clinical work, then we're maintaining clinical services, and wherever possible, dictated by clinical perspective and risk, face-to-face should be maintained. There are things that we can start to move much more to digital, for example, IAP services, and there'll be some people in the middle that saying, well, I'm not quite sure. Then the line is, speak to your manager about where's best for you to work from, and we'll continue to facilitate that. But that's the headline. The 3 divisions are currently looking at what sorts of redeployments are going to be required, what phasing down of some services to protect some of the critical services which will remain as inpatients, crisis services, children and adolescent services. That's not to say that the other services aren't important, but we will need to be able to get into a priority order of things. There are a number of things, of course, that are unknown, and it's also worth emphasising again that we are at level 4 of NHS command and control. So there are a number of things where it's not up for a conversation. We get told to do this. You may think differently, we may think differently, but that's the environment that we're working at the minute. The other unknown is the impact this new variant will have on numbers. So in the last week, staff absences due to COVID have increased by 100 across the organisation. But to give you some context, we're still significantly short of the absences we had in wave 1. So although things are tight and tightening, there is still some flexibility in terms of comparison with some of the challenges we had back in March and April. But that's a very rapidly changing picture, and some of the maps of where the new variant is across the country, you'll have seen them. You know, it's in London, it's in the southeast and east of England and the northwest. It appears that the Midlands is in sort of pincer movement, and that the rates are starting to increase as rapidly. Again, the unknown is the impact of the lockdown, and whether that starts to slow some of the increase. Fingers crossed. And people will have views, won't they, as to whether it was not done in time, but yeah, that's for another day. So you'll see over the next few days some important things coming out in the comms daily message about the implications of this and the effects it's going to have on services right across the organisation. So please watch out and keep yourselves up to date on that. And to emphasise, it's a really rapidly changing picture. Lateral flow next. We've done really well on this in terms of getting the kit out to our 130 plus sites of operation, and we were recognised regionally as being one of the best outfits to do that complex logistics. The positive rate is fairly stable at about 0.5%, which is in line with most other organisations similar to ours, which gives us some additional information as to how much is out there, where it is, and gets us a bit ahead of the curve. One of the things that's really important to emphasise, despite that, we're having some challenges on getting staff to put their results in, and we're at something roughly around 50% or even less in some cases. Now, there are two really important things about that. When we signed up to this, we were mandated to report back our results, and we've got to evidence that we are using the kit appropriately and the results are going into the scores. And at the moment, that's not happening. In some areas, it's running really, really well. In others, it's light, and staff are openly saying, yeah, some people are using it, some people aren't. But that's not acceptable. We can't continue to do that, because it opens up all sorts of risks, not only to staff but patients too. So my ask is that, in terms of your leadership, if you could continue to encourage and urge staff that have got testing kits to use them appropriately twice a week, and to upload their results, which is relatively easy. If they're having difficulties, that's an easy thing to remedy. The other reason that this is really important, that as the first tranche of these runs out between weeks 10 to 12, we will not get more supply until we can evidence where we've used the first tranche of kit, which will leave us up a creek without a paddle, if you see what I mean. Because we'll be back to the position we were in sort of October, November, not knowing where the asymptomatic people are, and that puts us at risk of more outbreaks and challenges. So it's really, really important that we that we get back onto some tighter oversight of the lateral flow. And then the third thing from me by way of introduction is just to give you some introductory sort of overview of where we are with the vaccination program. So officially, we weren't due to start vaccinating our staff and patients before the new year. So the 4th of January was kickoff date for us. Due to various reasons, we've been able to access particularly the Pfizer vaccine through our close working relationship with Sherwood Forest, and the access through that has been because of the complexities around that vaccine and the importance of not wasting it. We've had some sort of emergency stroke urgent rotas that have enabled we over 200 staff to have had at least one dose of that vaccine. From this week, we've got 4 or 5 sites opening up across the county: Cripps Health Centre, Gampston, the Richard Herod in Carlton, Ashfield Health Village Complexy Place, which we will have allocated slots where over the next couple of weeks we'll be getting up to 500 allocated slots a week for our staff. So I know there's been a lot of concerns about it's not equitable, we've held it back. That's not the case. We're actually ahead of the game compared to some of our peer trusts. One of the real big challenges is about enabling those prioritised from the risk assessments, the extremely clinical vulnerable, to have access to the vaccine first. That's been really difficult with Pfizer for the reasons I've just described, the logistics around it. It'll be much more easy with the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is now starting to arrive. At the moment, we have no influence on how much vaccine we get. It's being pushed out. From next week, we'll be able to put orders in, which will still be rationed, but we'll have greater influence of what we get and where, and that will enable us to have a much greater impact on those prioritisation groups within our staff. In terms of our patients, that's probably one step behind in terms of what the national plan is to inform how we enable mental health and disability patients and community patients to get the vaccine. You'll have been hearing a lot about the prioritisation lists from the Joint Committee of Vaccines and Immunisations, JCVI, and they hold the line on this, on saying that it's over 80s, it's health and social care staff, and then there's various subcategorisations. At the minute, we're going to continue to hold the booking on this centrally. Where other organisations have released it, it's been chaos, because rightly the whole population wants this as soon as possible. But at the minute, we have much better control if we can just keep it in house. So the message is, we will get in touch with you, and we are trying our hardest to ensure there is equity and that we abide by the national guidance, which is really tight, and also subject to change. So again, people will be aware of the change in the instruction from over 80s, get your 2 doses in, to get as many people in now for 1 dose and defer the second until up to 12 weeks. There's various clinical expert opinion on that, but at the moment that is the instruction, and we're being really tightly monitored on doing that. The aspiration is to getting to a couple of million doses a week by the end of the month, and I think that's doable. And we've had so much interest and commitment for people to getting trained up to be vaccinators. The rotas are looking much better now across the various centres, and I'm, as you all are, wedded to the NHS ability to really step up at points of crisis like this. And I think once we get the vaccine supply on a regular basis, that we'll be able to achieve those sorts of figures. There are some still constraints on the vaccine supply. And the last point for me is just to emphasise that the AstraZeneca is still in the technical term is field surveillance. So it's only day 3 of its approval and release. So there is still some very detailed monitoring to make sure that as it's released to large numbers of people very quickly, there aren't some unusual side effects and problems. No one's expecting any. There weren't any in the trials that were anything to worry about, but that's just the normal process of releasing new medications. So despite the bottom line, despite the real difficult challenges at the moment, that there is daylight and sunshine ahead. Thank you for knuckling down and getting us to that point. So that's Alex. Thank you. That's all from me by way of introduction.
Okay, thank you, John. And just to highlight, Neil has put within the chat, staff side absolutely support you in relation to the need to report test results and also the correct use of PPE. So thanks, Neil. He's also asked a question, John. There was a review taking place around Riddle reporting of staff COVID tests, staff COVID cases. Where are we with that, please?
Yeah, that's a good question, Neil. And at this very moment, I don't have an answer to that. And unless my colleagues do, then if you could bear with me, and I'll get back to you with a response.
Okay, thank you. We've had a number of questions sent in, and so the first one is in relation to the car lease scheme, and I'll just talk through the question. Can you please give any updates about the current lease car scheme? It was mentioned briefly a number of months ago about the scheme changing in March. Will staff on the current scheme be able to leave and enter into a new lease, and will there be a financial penalty to do this? The current scheme is financially crippling for some of us, costing approximately 3 times the amount per month that the previous scheme did. It has been extremely demoralising that in order for the trust to make savings, staff have had to personally foot the bill for caring for people in the community and preventing hospital admissions. We have had no choice but to pay this, as we cannot do our job without a car. I don't know if you've got.
Yeah, so sorry, I noticed I'm peering at papers and you can see my bald head, but if I do this, you probably say your bald head's better than your face. Anyway, it's not to dismiss this. This is really important, isn't it? The fundamental principle should be that we shouldn't be allowing staff to have financial hardship in unforeseen circumstances like this. In terms of the specifics, again, I'm going to have to defer to people that understand how car lease financing works. But to give some assurance to the people that are on the sort of receiving end of this, that I would come at this from a position that we should be able to find a solution that enables people not to have financial detriment as a cause of something that is out with their control. Apologies, that's a bit generic, but again, if you could leave that with me, and we can come back to you with a more detailed response.
Okay, thanks, John. We've had another question which is linked to IT and with regards to the service from IT. I don't know if you wish to address that, John.
Yeah, so this is important and slightly unusual. I just want to sort of test out with the audience, really. So I could read. I've just been talking to Alex about this. I could read sort of 1.5 pages of densely typed notes, but just give you some sense of it. So this is important because I think this goes to the heart of the sort of culture and values of the organisation that we're aiming for here. And so it's important that people are able to raise issues. So the strap line of the first question, and it's important that people want to remain anonymous, that's fine. The first line of this question is, how long are we expected to carry on putting up with the service we receive from IT, question mark. And And then there are 3 more detailed bullet points about direction, Wi-Fi, networks, Windows 7, and the challenges that this person has from the customer services and getting responses. So it's valid from that perspective, but I think there's ways of resolving things, aren't there? And there's behaviours that and demeanour that we would expect of others as we hope to behave ourselves. And IT have given a detailed response, which I'm not going to read out, but I'm just going to put some perspectives from where I sit, and both Becky and Anne-Marie may feel they want to add points to it, and particularly Becky, who's worked in a different organisation. So my headline point about digital and IT over the last year, as I think they've done a phenomenal job in responding to the challenges of the pandemic, and overnight almost we were able to be digitally enabled to have these sorts of conversations. There was a huge programme of work around admittedly some previously perhaps too slow response to getting us all onto Windows 10. And when I started a couple of years ago, that was one of the biggest things in my inbox about the time it took to log on, which in 2019 was, we were behind the curve on that. The vast majority of that has been worked through. The vast majority. I think there are still 1 or 2 bits where for some technical reasons, Windows 7 still needs to be worked, but they're on it. I think the ability to hold clinical conversations online, again, that's transformative to where we were a year ago. And I could continue to give lots of different examples and sort of under the desk, behind the scenes examples about network upgrades and stuff like that, which, the tech is specialist and it's important, and we need to make sure that organisationally that we're front of the curve. I take the point. I think I come at it from a position of we can always improve, and I think there's more to do. That the world is digitally enabled, isn't it? And I think organisationally that there are some key things that we continue to look at how we could get better, and there are key things, particularly in how we support and enable staff to have better, quicker, faster access to all things digital. It takes time, it takes investment, it takes resource and money. And there is money around at the moment. It's not sloshing around, but you can get savvy at how you access monies. So my specific response to the question would be that if there are specific things that you want to pick up with the IT, I know that Kathy and her team would be more than happy to have a conversation about specific things, either individually or in your work environment, that they could look at how they could help you move forward. Is that all right, Alex, on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know if Anne-Marie
or
wanted to say.
Yeah, I was just going to come in to say, actually, I've been really impressed with IT here. So again, it's not I understand frustrations with IT, and I think historically in the NHS, whatever organisation you go into, it's not been as savvy tech as other organisations. That's probably because we've put money into other things. But my even feedback to Kathy actually quite early on is pretty good here, and I'm not making an excuse, but in comparison to other places, and probably just pick up with John. Let's look at how digitally enabled we've become in a year. And actually that takes a heck of a lot of resource behind the scenes. So I think, you know, agree, it could be better. The experience that I certainly receive is excellent, certainly in comparison. And I always also think we've just got to be a bit kind. I think IT are one of those services that actually our expectations are really high. They're working really, really hard, the same as all our frontline staff are. And actually, of course, it can be better, but it's about how we foster relationships and have those proactive conversations as apart from slating people, really. But my experience really is you've got a really good system here. The other bit of personal anecdote is my son works on the IT help desk in another organisation. It's a pretty horrible job when you listen to some of the receiving calls he has to take. He's worked all over Christmas remotely. So I think there's just that bit about let's be kind to each other, and actually everyone's got their own issues. We'd love super high quality tech kit. There's a reality there, but actually it's not bad.
I was actually going to say exactly the same as Becky. My experiences are that coming to this organisation, I don't always judge it on myself, because as directors, I do see that potentially we have the options to have a better service, because we're here at Duncan Mac, we're here where the guys are sitting. We can actually just knock on the door if we need to. But going out and about and listening to people, this is not a bad service here. And I mean, I've worked in 3 organisations quite recently, and here the access to information, the access to the services, they answer the phone, they answer the requirements and the inquiries really quickly. They always get back to you. I've looked at the closed Facebook page when anybody has posted a query, somebody always goes back to them really quickly and says, oh, by the way, this is how you do it, or this is what you should do, or this is the phone number you should put in. The only thing I would say is that I don't like the phones. I can't deny it. I think the phones aren't helpful. But as for everything else, and for the guys that are on the other end of the customer services, honestly, brilliant.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. We have got another question which is related to IT, but slightly differently. Sorry, John, did you want to say something?
No.
No, OK, sorry. Is it possible for us to redistribute computers or laptops that the Trust would otherwise remove or throw out to schools in disadvantaged areas to give to children who would have no IT equipment to allow them to learn from home during these difficult times?
Yeah, so when I saw this question, I thought, what a great idea. However, it's not as straightforward, and the people that know have said our understanding from working with local authority and schools is that they require modern and uniform IT kit, so it's fit for purpose to enable access to learning platforms and resources that schools use. So essentially, if they get random bits of kit that haven't got latest operating systems on, etc., it doesn't really help. That's not to say I don't think that, and I'm sure that we do, in terms of kit that is surplus to requirements, that we need to make sure that we look at other options as to whether, you know, other charities or third sector or other people can use it, because I'm sure that will be the case. So it's a great question.
Excellent, thank you. We've had I was looking at the Facebook group and some of the questions that have come up on that, and I thought it may be worth just asking here. But Anne-Maria, after having been tested positive, can you still be tested as positive up to 90 days later?
Yes, you can. So what we are doing is we are saying, and this applies to both patients and staff, is that we do not suggest that you do either your lateral flow testing or PCR testing for up to 90 days after you've tested positive. There's no point, because what we're finding is that people do continue to test positive. Now, what we are saying, though, is after 90 days, and you've kind of like had that lapse of period of time that you were positive, is to continue then doing your lateral flows. And the reason I say that is that we have had some patients and we have had some staff that have caught it twice. So, okay, so it's important to note that you can get it again, and that's why it's important to continue then to go back into your lateral flow testing after your 90 days.
That's great, thank you. And Neil, as staff side chair, has put, we've had a number of discussions in staff side about people's behaviour online and towards each other. Our bottom line is that we should all operate from the perspective of do as you would be done by JC Kingsley, water babies. In relation to IT, the only thing I'm disappointed about is the closure going forward of the walk-in facility, because that was marvellous for me, but that I accept creates a huge difficulty for IT. So it's just to
yeah, thanks Neil. That's very erudite, isn't it, knowing that's water babies? I always thought that was the Bible. That's my Church of England school upbringing, but it's true, isn't it? It's what's it like to be on the receiving end, and as Becky said, it's about developing strong professional working relationships. Is helps get things sorted. Yeah, the walk-in facility was very popular, and it's one of the casualties of lockdown, and we are going to need to think in the longer term how we remodel that offer, aren't we, in terms of helping support staff getting stuff resolved.
Excellent. Thank you. And Jude Robinson, lead matron, has said we would only retest if patients or staff were to show symptoms within that 90-day period. So that's just to highlight. We've had another question. Well, it's been highlighted on the Facebook group and through other means as well, which is linked to the voucher that was sent out just before Christmas as a thank you. And I know that we've had a number of people, there's been significant numbers of people who've emailed in to say thank you for the voucher, so I know that it's been very much appreciated, John. But people have struggled to access the voucher at times, and there was just a question about who do they need to contact to get that resolved.
Yeah, thanks. So I think the first thing to say is that I think it's been really well received and undoubtedly well deserved. I've had lots of personal emails from staff saying thank you, and you're very welcome, very welcome, and wish it could be more, but I think it's the recognition that's really important. Appreciate that there have been some, I think a relatively small number, but obviously for the individual it's frustrating, and there are some people that have been missed off the emails for no obvious reason. We're addressing that. It will take a little while for that to filter through, so a bit of patience. I know people have that, but particularly timing with the holiday period as well meant there's been a bit of delay. There's instructions on Connect. I know that lots of people don't connect to Connect. We are looking at that in the longer term. There are instructions on if you do receive an email, and that's the vast majority of people, there are instructions on that on how to access it. If this makes sense to people, change the made-up email address to your own, enter the code on the email, do not pay for the voucher yourself. And the other thing to mention is that Voucher Line people are a small independent company. So this is a big piece of work for them, so it will take a bit of time for everybody to sort of flow through their processes. And if you've got further queries, to contact Voucher Line directly, or internal queries through HR voucher enquiries.
Thanks, John. And we've had one final question emailed in, and that's just querying about what will happen re annual leave. Although encouraging the use of annual leave throughout the year, there are staff who have a large amount left to take this financial year. This has happened for various reasons, sickness including COVID, redeployment in the first lockdown, etc. In previous years, we were allowed to carry over a limited number of hours or days to the following financial year at the discretion of the manager. Has the Trust considered their position on this? It may be a minor issue with the current climate, but will affect several staff.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I'll start off, and I don't know whether Anne-Marie or Becky wants to say anything specifically from their perspectives, but the important thing is that we should, where possible, big caveat, we should be encouraging people to take their leave. And it's really important to take breaks, to get some downtime, to recharge our batteries. I was very fortunate to have some time off between Christmas and New Year, and it's really helped. My colleagues on the call will vouch for me getting grumpy, getting more easily irritated than usual. I know that's difficult to that might be a surprise to people, but it's really important that we encourage people to take leave where possible, appreciating that we are about to enter, we are in lockdown again, that sickness is probably going to go up and it will be more difficult to do that, but that's got to be a really important guiding principle. I can't remember the specifics of carryover. I know there is a facility for that, but one of the things that we need to review as we go into the second lockdown, third wave, is that we may we'll be mindful that we might need to make some amendments to that so people don't get penalised for not taking it. So in terms of anything more specific, we can come back to people on that and get some comms out on it. I don't know, Anne-Marie, if you want to say anything more.
Well, the only thing I would say is that up until about the end of so towards the February, March of 2020, the organisation didn't allow carryover, and it was a policy that we didn't allow any carryover at all. However, the executives did at that point review it and recognise that we weren't in line with the rest of the trusts across the region, and we knew that our colleagues in other organisations were having the policy where you could carry either 5 or 10 days over. So we did review it at that point, and we agreed that we would have a change and that we would be able to allow some carryover. Then COVID hit, and we had to review it anyway, with the fact that a lot of people weren't able to take their leave. The only thing is I would say, with the same as John, I'm really keen for people to take regular breaks, whether that be long weekends or a week or whatever it is. And I know that a lot of people have their holidays cancelled and they've not been able to go away, but sometimes just taking that break and getting away, if you can, recognising that there's been a lot of pressures for staff to be at work. I think that if you can take that break, that's what we would like to encourage more than anything. But we have re-looked at carryover, and there is a policy now in place. Anna's asked if we can still sell annual leave. I'm not sure whether or not we've still got that in place. We'll have to come back to you. I don't know if John knows that one.
No, I don't know, actually. I've got a sneaking suspicion we might have finished it.
Yeah.
But again, so rather than me just making something up, let's find out what the real answer is, Anna, sorry, and we'll get back to you on that.
And actually, Cheryl's put something in which I think is worth telling everybody. I've seen that a few times. People have said to me it's gone into the junk inbox. So if people could mention that to all staff that are saying that, just have a quick check in your inbox, your junk inbox first, because that's where it has landed in some people's, for the vouchers.
There's as well, there's a really good point from Pip Dean about IT. So that the constraint around the security, and we know that the firewalls and the protections are sometimes so tight that it can be really frustrating staff, for example, to get into external NHS websites. And we know that's an issue, and we're working on it. But it's a really good point to raise and to remind us of that, Pip. Thank you.
Excellent. There aren't any further questions that have been sent in. I don't know if anybody's got any final comments for the last 5 minutes.
I've got things to say unless I've got any questions.
No.
That's a surprise. Go on then, Anne-Marie.
Oh, you know me. So can I just mention flu? I don't know if you've heard about flu. We're at 76%, everybody. You have done amazing. So 76% is brilliant. Apparently, on the booking in system for the COVID vaccine, it says that you've had to wait 28 days. That is not true. you have to wait 7 days after your flu vaccine before you can have your COVID vaccine. So that is going to be changed. So if it's put you off, please don't allow it to put you off. Still can go and have your flu vaccine. We increased over Christmas and New Year, which is absolutely fantastic. So that means people did go and book into their clinics. So well done, everybody, for that. However, I want to give a word of warning. If you get flu and COVID, your outcomes are very, 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 very poor. There's a lot of verys in there. So that's why I'm trying to emphasise is please, please consider having your flu, because you're protecting not just yourself, but your families, your loved ones, and more importantly, our patients. Can I just also mention PPE? So it comes up a lot around PPE, and I'm really happy that Neil supported us on that. But a lot of people are now thinking that if you've had your lateral flow test, if you've had your COVID, if you've had your flu, then they can start to step down on PPE. I've actually chaired a really big COVID outbreak over the last 2 days, a massive outbreak in one of our wards across the trust. And the majority of it, so we had 9 positive staff within 3 days. That's just on one ward, and we've now got several patients as well, and those patients have not been anywhere. So I need to just emphasise how important PPE still is, social distancing still is, and enhanced cleaning, and also to remember to clean all the touch points. One of the things that we're learning from other organisations as well as ourselves is that some of the touch points are things that you wouldn't think of. So think about your kettles, think about door handles that you'd touch more. The other one that was noted in another trust is the PlayStation game holders. So make sure that you think about cleaning those after every single use. So start to get your Clinell wipes out and make sure that you do that. Also, donning and doffing is still an issue. So donning is where you put all your PPE on, and doffing is taking it all off. So it's just remember where you put it on, where you take it off, and the importance of that. So PPE, just please, please still use it, because these outbreaks, you know, we are giving it to our patients if we're not careful. And that's the last position we want to be in, because some of these patients have been very poorly, and we've had 2 patients recently needing to go to intensive care and be on ventilators. And these are patients that have been with us for some considerable months and years. Also, we've got currently 12 outbreaks across the trust. And I wanted to say about administrative kind of like spaces, environments. So what I'm finding is that people are still very, very good with their patients, but as soon as they go into an office, or they go into a changing room, or they go into the kitchen, it's those are the areas that we're finding that people are lapsing in their use of PPE or social distancing, and it's where they tend to take the drinks or have sustenance. So I think that those are the areas that you really, really need to start thinking about, because that is where the transmission is definitely occurring. Sarah Jane's put on their keyboards as well. Yeah, so all of the kind of like areas that are high touch, we just need to start thinking about. But certainly the administration, and we've had quite a few outbreaks now which are just admin staff, and that is an important area as well. So those are the bits I just wanted to mention. And I'm really pleased that John mentioned lateral flow testing at the beginning. So one of the things I found is that we've got outbreaks where staff are not using their lateral flow kits. So we've got outbreaks where staff have got symptoms, but they've not been doing the lateral flow, and then they've not been putting their results into the electronic system. Now, I do it, and it's the easiest system I have ever seen. It's just one click, one date, positive or negative, and that is it. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. So I want you to start all encouraging people to put their results in. It is very, very easy, but please don't allow people to be reluctant about putting their results in. The other thing is results can be backdated for as long as you need. So if you've done your testing for 4 weeks previous, all 4 weeks results can be put in. So that's not an issue either. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Anne-Maria. And just to note that Wayne has also highlighted about door code locks, which is a really good point.
Yeah.
John, did you want to say anything further to close?
I think we're all done, aren't we? Thank everybody for their contributions, for dialing in. Tell your friends. It's open to everybody. I don't know if I mentioned this before Christmas. I'm not meant to tell you about how well we've done on the National Staff Survey. This will be a recurring theme for at least the next year. We will start to prep a more detailed summary for people to see when we've got permission. But across the country, the majority of mental health, learning disability and community trusts use an organisation called PICA to do the analysis. And of those 27 trusts across nationally that use it, we are the most improved organisation. So we're top of the tree in terms of improvement from last year, which is a fantastic achievement. And for example, the percentage of staff recommending the trust as a place to work has increased from, I think, 50 to 63%, which puts us above average. So that's a testament to the fantastic work that all you have been involved in the last year, 2 years and longer. So big thank you, and watch this space because there'll be more of it.
Brilliant, thanks. Anna Simpson has just asked, lots of work to do. Do we have an indication of when we will get the outcomes? That's super news.
No, I mean, we were told it was going to be mid-February, but we got sort of a 75 slide pack literally just before Christmas that's got embargo and draft and stamped all the way through it. Despite that, I've told everybody already, like everybody on the call. I've mentioned it on the exec call about 10 times. I've let the CQC know, and I've
already told the CQC.
So it's brilliant. It's brilliantly embargoed. So yeah, but there's two different versions. So yeah, I think I'll help support to get some messages out as soon as I think the national embargo actually gets lifted in February or March. They haven't yet given a final date because what they have to do is collate all of those reports from the different providers. So yeah.
It's brilliant. You know what I think about it. It's the most important thing in terms of what our staff are saying about us, and to turn this tank around, it has been a huge piece of work. And as Anna says, there is still lots to do, because even with that result, it only takes us into the sort of mid-table, if you like, and it's an indication of some of the challenges we've had. But it's the way forward, and it provides a really strong foundation for for the future for everybody. So it's a brilliant achievement. Well done. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, just to emphasise something that's just been put in the chat, and the reason that I do that is just for anybody that then watches back, they can't necessarily see the chat. So it was just to say that, do staff need to continue lateral flow once vaccinated against COVID? And Anne Maria has said yes, absolutely. Also, staff can still transfer COVID even if they have had the vaccine. So thank you. So
yeah,
excellent.
Great stuff.
Okay, thank you ever so much. If anybody wants to send in any questions for next week, please send them into staff engagement.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.